If you're about to retire or recently retired, there's a risk lurking in your retirement plan that could cause two retirees with identical portfolios and identical 8% average returns to end up with completely different outcomes. One thrives with a growing portfolio, the other runs out of money in 10 years. In this video, I'm going to show you why average returns stop mattering the moment you start withdrawing money, walk you through a real example that proves how devastating this risk can be, and then show you the strategy I use to eliminate this threat entirely. By the end, you'll understand why protecting against sequence of returns risk might be the single most important decision you're going to make for your retirement. Chapter 1. Why average returns become meaningless in retirement. For decades, you've been told to focus on average returns. Get 7% or 8% per year and you'll be fine, right? That advice completely breaks down the moment you retire and start taking withdrawals. During your working years, when you're only adding money to your return portfolio, the sequence of returns doesn't really matter. When the stock market's going up, your investments are growing. When the stock market drops, you're buying at a discount. You're not selling anything, you're only buying. Every dollar you invest gets the full benefit of compound growth over your entire timeline. But retirement fundamentally changes the equation. Now you're withdrawing money every single year to pay for your lifestyle. If you experience negative returns early in retirement while also taking withdrawals, you're selling shares at depressed prices. Those shares are gone forever. They can never participate in the recovery. This interaction between bad market conditions and required withdrawals can wreak havoc on your portfolio's ability to continue funding your retirement. The first 10 years of retirement account for up to 77% of your final outcome. This means what happens in the first decade matters far more than what happens over the next 20 years. If you retire into a bear market, your portfolio takes a double hit. Losses from the market decline plus the ongoing withdrawals you need to live on. God forbid somebody retired in 2007. That person was in the market in 2008, 2009, 2010. They weren't thinking about long-term average returns. They were worried about whether or not they were going to have to go back to work. That's the reality of sequence risk. Chapter 2. Same returns, completely different outcomes. Let me show you exactly how this plays out. Imagine two retirees, Alex and Jamie. Both retire with exactly $1 million. Both withdraw $50,000 per year to fund their retirement. In over 20 years, both of their portfolios average exactly 8% per year. You'd expect them to end up in the same place, right? Wrong. Here's what actually happened. Alex retires in 2007, right before the financial crisis. In year one, the market drops significantly. Alex's portfolio falls to around $900,000, and then he withdraws his $50,000, leaving him with $850,000. Year two, another big decline. His portfolio drops further, and he still takes out another $50,000. By year 3 or 4, even though the market recovers eventually and delivers that 8% average return over the next 20 years, that only works for the shares that stay invested. Alex was forced to sell at the worst possible time. Those shares are gone. They can't participate in the recovery. Alex may need to seriously reduce his lifestyle because there's an increased risk that Alex is going to go broke. Now, let's look at Jamie. Jamie retires at the exact same time with the same $1 million and the same $50,000 annual need. But Jamie structured things differently. Jamie has 20 years of income set aside in protected assets that aren't affected by the market crash. Jamie's growth investments sit completely untouched during the downturn. When the market eventually recovers, Jamie captures the full benefit of that recovery because nothing was sold at the bottom. By year 20, Jamie has more than he started with, despite taking $50,000 every single year adjusted for inflation. That same starting balance, same average returns, same withdrawal amount, completely different outcomes. That's sequence of returns risk. And after working with hundreds of retirees, I can tell you, this is the single biggest threat to your retirement and your retirement portfolio. Chapter 3, the strategy that eliminates sequence risk. Here's the good news. There's a strategy that eliminates sequence of returns risk entirely. I call it the 3-bucket strategy, and it works by separating your money based on when you'll need it. Instead of keeping all your money in one traditional balanced portfolio and hoping for the best, you divide your assets into 3 separate buckets. Those 3 buckets are: bucket 1, cash. This is your emergency reserve. 6 to 12 months of living expenses sitting in high-yield savings accounts or money market funds. This isn't the money you live on day to day. This is strictly your safety net for those unexpected expenses. Let's say your car breaks down, or you need a new roof, or some medical bills that you weren't expecting pop up. Bucket 1 handles those surprises so you never have to touch your other buckets at the wrong time. Then we have bucket 2. Bucket 2 is the protected income bucket, and this is really the workhorse of the entire strategy. This bucket funds your lifestyle for the next 20 years without exposing you to any stock market risk. Let me say that again. 20 years of income with no market risk. You can structure this with money market accounts. You can use certificates of deposit. You can use fixed annuities or fixed indexed annuities. About 95% of the clients that we work with choose a fixed indexed annuity after we walk through the options. And here's why. It gives us a floor at 0, meaning we can't lose money to market downturns. It typically averages between 5 to 7% per year. And in good years, it can capture up to 10 or 11% depending on the caps. Let's compare that to bonds, which have averaged 1 to 2% a year over the last decade while you're still paying fees on that money. The protected income bucket gives us better returns with zero downside risk. The key principle is this. If the S&P 500 drops 40% tomorrow, bucket 2 doesn't care. It's completely insulated. That gives you the psychological freedom to let bucket 3 ride out any storm. So what is bucket 3? Well, that's our long-term growth. This bucket is invested in stocks for the maximum long-term growth. You don't need to touch this money for 20 years, and that time horizon is absolutely critical. Here's the fact that makes this entire strategy work. We've never seen a 20-year cycle in the stock market that's lost money. Not once. That's why we structure bucket 2 to cover 20 years of income. So bucket 3 has the time it needs to do what the stock market does best. Grow. Because you know buckets 1 and bucket 2, they've got it covered for the next 2 decades. You can let bucket 3 do its job without constantly worrying about volatility. The S&P 500 drops 25% in a year, you don't care. You're not touching that money for 20 years. Chapter 4, the $1 million example. Let me show you how powerful this strategy can be with real numbers. You retire with $1 million and you need $50,000 per year to supplement Social Security. Here's how we structure it. Bucket 1 gets about $80,000 for your emergency reserves. Bucket 2, about $650,000. That's 65% of the portfolio for 20 years of protected income. Bucket 3 gets the remaining $270,000 for long-term growth. That $650,000 in bucket 2 is designed to fund your income for the full 20 years. We'll calculate exactly how much you need to give you that $50,000 a year, adjusted for inflation. So in year 2, we're giving you $51,500, in year 3, getting $53,000, and so on. By the end of that 20-year period, bucket 2 can be down to zero. That's totally fine. It did its job. Now imagine a major crash hits in years 2 and 3. Bucket 3 drops 40%. You don't panic. Why? Because you're not selling anything from bucket 3. You're living off bucket 2, which didn't move at all. Bucket 3 has the full 20 years to recover and grow completely untouched. Over a 20-year period, the stock market has historically averaged around 8% annually. At 8%, money roughly doubles every 9 years or so. That $270,000 in bucket 3 could grow to roughly $1.2 million or more by year 20 without ever touching it. So let's look at what happened. You started with $1 million. You got all the income you needed every year for 20 years. You gave yourself a raise every single year to keep up with inflation and to make sure you had the money to cover your expenses. And at the end of that 20-year period, you have more than you started with. That's a win. Let's compare that to someone who didn't use this strategy, retired at the exact same time, and was forced to sell stocks during the early crash. That person likely ends up with far less, or worse, runs out of money entirely. That's the power of eliminating the sequence risk. Sequence of returns risk is real. It's dangerous, and most retirees don't even know it exists until it's too late. But now you do. And more importantly, you know there's a proven strategy to protect yourself. Whether you're approaching retirement or are already retired and this video speaks to you, schedule a call with our team through the link in the description.